सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु। तदात्मनि निरते यौपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं शकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओमित्येतदक्षरमुद्गीतमुपासीत ओमिति ह्युद्गायते तस्योपव्याख्यानम् तदनन्यत्वम् आरम्भणशब्दादिभ्यः कूटस्थं च नित्यं ब्रह्म सर्वविक्रिया प्रतिषेधादिति अवोचाम. We have said earlier that Brahman is kutасtham, changeless, nityam, eternal, sarvavikriya pratishedat, because while unfolding the nature of Brahma, Shruti negates all the vikriya, all the vishesha, the distinctions or attributes are negated, and that way all vikriya, all modifications are negated in Brahma. न च यथा ब्रह्मणः आत्मैकत्वदर्शनं मोक्षसाधनम् and brahmanah atmaikatva the knowledge of identity of Brahman and Atma is moksha sadhanam, is a means of moksha, means of freedom from all the sorrow, and also being established in the fullness that is one's own nature. तथा जगदाकार परिणामित्व दर्शनमपि स्वतंत्रमेव कस्मैचित् फलाय अभिप्रेयते. Don't think that the knowledge of Brahman that undergoes transformation. So, knowledge of Kutastha Brahma, changeless Brahma, is the means of moksha. But in that manner, the knowledge of the changing Brahman or changeful Brahman does not independently give rise to end result. As an aid it becomes indirectly the means of moksha, but not svatantratya, not on its own, not directly. Pramana abhavat, because nowhere do we find any statements in the Upanishads which say that the knowledge of changeful Brahman gives rise to moksha or liberation. Kutastha Brahma Tattva Vijnanadevahi Phalam Darshayati Shastram. On the other hand, Shastra clearly shows the phalam, the result, moksha, by the knowledge of the Kutastha Brahma, Brahman that is changeless. Saesha Neti Netyatma iti upakramya. Beginning from Esha Neti Netyatma, Atma is not this, not this. Meaning the gross and the subtle, all of these are negated in the Atma. Iti upakramya, commencing with that, abhayam vai janaka praptosi, and concluding with this, the statement, hey Janaka, you attain abhayam brahma. So by neti neti, all the visheshas are negated. So it is kutastha brahma. By knowledge of it, Janaka attained fearlessness, which is moksha. Tatra etat siddham bhavati. With this is what becomes established. Brahma prakarane sarva dharma vishesharahita brahma darshanadeva phala siddhau. Brahma prakarane, in the context of Param Brahma, Sarva Dharma Vishesha Rahita Brahma Darshanadeva. By darshanat, by the knowledge of Brahman, that is Sarva Dharma Vishesha Rahitam, devoid of all the peculiarities or attributes, Brahman such as that. Tad Darshanadeva, only by darshanam or knowledge of Brahman as the self. And self is devoid of all attributes. Atma, the consciousness that illumines all the attributes, is necessarily different from all the attributes. All attributes are the objects of illumination by the Atma, therefore the illuminator must be different from what is illumined. So Atma is the only entity really which is devoid of all the attributes, which is kutastha, which is changeless, which is nitya, which is eternal. All of these, even though the word Brahman is used, all of these primarily only apply to Atma or the self. That's the reason why Brahman is to be known as the self. And still the word Brahma is used because the self may give rise to the notion of ego. I as separate from other eyes, therefore Brahman, which is the Jagat Karanam, the cause of creation, the self of the universe or self of all, that is used, and the identity of that Brahman with the Atma or the self is taught. Yat tatra aphalam shruyate brahmanah jagadakara parinamitvadi. In that same chapter also we find that Brahman, which has transformed itself with the creation, also is mentioned, but no result is mentioned of knowing Brahman, which is changeful. Tad Brahma darshan upayatveneva viniyujyate. Therefore, we have to conclude that knowledge of changeful Brahman is a means of the knowledge of changeless Brahman, because Shruti does not present any independent result of this, and therefore we have to conclude that how phalavat sannidhau aphalam tadangam iti vada. So in the vicinity of that which is meaningful, resultful, in vicinity of that, when something which has no result is mentioned, then that should be considered as a means, angam or part. Natu swatantram phalaya kalpyate. That being the case, the knowledge of changeful Brahman cannot be imagined to be independently giving rise to any result. Only through the knowledge of Kutastha Brahma that it becomes meaningful, not independently. Like several steps in a puja become meaningful by contributing to the entire puja. So entire puja has a result, but no separate result is mentioned for individual aspects of that. So we were to conclude that all of these contribute to the total result by completing the main ceremony. Nai parinamatva vijnanat parinamatvam atmana phalam syaditi. But then Urupakshi says that tam yatha yatha upasate tadeva bhavati. It says that as you meditate upon Ishvara, so you become. Idi shrutehe brahmana parinamitva vijnanat. In whichever manner you meditate upon Brahman, that is what you become. That means Brahman has many manners, Brahman can be meditated upon in many manners. That is, Brahman is changeful. Had it been changeless, then it is not possible to meditate upon them in different ways. But in whichever way you meditate upon Brahman, that's what you become. That seems to indicate that Brahman is changeful or multifarious, not homogeneous. Dharma Bhashyakara says, Nahi parinamatva vijnanat parinamatvam atmana phalam syat. You cannot say that by meditating upon Brahman there is changeful, that Atma becomes changeful. Atma is Kutastha. Atma is the nature of moksha. And therefore, Kutastha nityatvat mokshasya. Moksha itself is Atma, is knowledge of Atma or abidance in Atma is moksha. And Atma is Kutastha nitya, changelessly eternal, and so is moksha, must be changelessly eternal. On the page 381, continuing. Says Ratnabhava, Brahmavid apnodi paramedi shruta kutastha nitya moksha phala sambhave dukkha anitya parinamitva phala kalpana ayogati bhavaha. That when you can get the result in terms of being limitless, why should you want to imagine that a limited result is desirable? How can it be desirable? Kutastha nitya moksha phala sambhave. When there is this possibility of the phala or the result in the form of the changelessly eternal, dukkha anitya parinamitva phala kalpana ayogat. Why should you want to meditate and land into dukkha? Because you land into changing Brahman, which change always creates dukkha. Anitya, it is perishable. Parinami, changeful. Kalpana ayogat. It does not make any sense to give any importance to the result of meditation upon changeful Brahman when the result of meditating upon or knowing the changeless Brahman gives you moksha. What is the point in promoting the meditation upon changeful Brahman? So that point is now taken care of. Now says Ratnaprabha, Nanu purvam janmadyasya yatah iti Ishvara karana pratignya krita. The second sutra, very first sutra, Athado Brahma Jignasa, is prefaced, and then Brahma Sutra teaching starts from the second sutra, Janmadyasya yatah asya jagadah janma bhangadi janma sthiti bhanga. So, yatah, from which Brahman are the creation, sustenance and dissolution of this universe. Meaning that Brahman is presented there as the Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam. Brahman is presented as both the material cause as well as the efficient cause, the creation as well as the creator. The Ishvara Karanatva Pratigna is a Pratigna Sutra. The rest of the Brahma Sutra is meant to prove that. So you make a proposition. We say that Brahman is Jagat Karanam. It is the cause of creation, the material cause of creation. And material cause is the reality of the effect. It is the self of the effect. Like the clay is the reality behind the parts, it is the self of the parts. And therefore, Brahman is the self of the universe, the reality behind the universe. Meaning that even though the universe appears to be consisting of names and forms which are all limited, the reality behind this limited universe is limitless. That even though the individual appears to be a limited being, but reality behind the limited individual also is limitless. This is the most amazing thing. So thus this proposition is first made, and rest of the Brahma Sutra is meant to establish this. So Jaga Ishvara Karanatva Karana Pratigna Krita. The Ishvara is Jagat Karanam. That Pratigna proposition was made right in the beginning. Aduna tadananyatvam iti it atyanta abheda pratipadane. But now you are saying tadananyatvam, that Jagat is not different from Brahman. What is Brahman? Now that's what you are saying. Formerly you said that Brahman is Jagat Karanam. So Karanam is different from the effect. Karanam is different from the effect. Cause is different from the effect. And then Jagat Ishvara is Jagat Karanam, the cause of creation. Then alone Ishvara can be omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. As Nimitta Karanam, omniscient. As Upadana Karanam, omnipresent. So all these various attributes that are assigned to Ishvara in terms of Sarvajñatvam, Sarvashaktimatvam, all of these will be relevant only when Ishvara is a ruler and the Jagat is ruled. But now you are saying that there is only one. What is Brahman? Therefore, there is no ruler, no ruled at all. Adhuna tat ananyatmamiti atyanta abheda pratipadane. When you are now expounding the atyanta abheda, Jagat is absolutely non-separate from Brahman, and therefore what is Brahman and nothing else. Ishitra Ishitavyabheda Abhavat. Then there is no duality. The very fact that you use the word Ishvara, Ishvara means ruler. That's the meaning of the word Ishvara. When can there be a ruler? When there is ruled. A ruler is always with reference to ruled. Therefore, the very word Ishvara presupposes duality of Ishitru, Ishitavya, the ruler and the ruled. That duality is implied by the very word Ishvara. But when there is only Ishvara, there is no separate ruler, no separate rule, then all that difference is erased or effaced. Tad virodasyat. So this sutra, which reveals the non-duality of Brahman, appears to contradict the earlier sutra where Brahman was presented as Ishvara, as a Nimitta and Upadana Karanam. Because Karanam is different from the Karyam. There seems to be thus a contradiction, a self-contradiction, the text contradicting itself. Within Brahma Sutra also there appears to be internal contradiction. How about that? Iti Shangade Kutastha Savashyakara says Kutastha Brahmatmavadinah Ekatvaikantyaat Ishitra ईशितव्य अभावे ईश्वर कारण प्रतिज्ञा विरोध है इति चेत. See, this is how we must reconcile. There must be consistency in the entire text. It cannot be that at one place the text says something and says something else contradictory elsewhere. Then it's not pramanam. Not only that, but it's talking through two mouths, saying something else here and something else there. Then what will you take is to be real? Therefore, it cannot be reliable. Therefore, it must be consistent. So therefore, Bhashyakara has to establish the consistency between the two apparently contradictory sutras. Sri Ratnaprabha Kalpita Dvaitam Apekshya Ishvaratvadikam Paramatata Ananyatma Vid Avirodham Aha. These are simply two standpoints, that's all. Kalpita Dvaitam Apekshya. Yes, that Ishita, Ishitavya, the ruler, the ruled also can be explained by Dvaitam, which is Kalpitam. We do not say that Ishvaratvam is real. That he is ruler, we do not say that the rulership is the ultimate nature of Brahman. From some standpoint, Brahman is called ruler, okay. But when you analyze the rulership, then it drops off. Rulership is only a standpoint. Because we look upon ourselves as ruled, we feel that we are ruled or restrained or constricted in every way. There is no freedom whatever there are. The whole universe is governed by the various laws over which we have no control. And therefore we have to helplessly submit to all the laws. There is a law of gravity. You have to submit to it. Otherwise you will get injured. That when fire burns, you have to submit to better. So we find that we are restricted everywhere. As though these restrictions of Ishvara were not enough, there are millions of restrictions that the rulers, the local rulers also impose. So our conclusion about ourselves is that we are ruled. This is our perception of ourselves. So when there is ruled, there must be a ruler. Therefore, we superimpose the idea of rulership upon Ishvara. That I am ruled is not a reality about me, is also only a false perception about me. If being ruled were reality, then Ishvara would be a ruler in the real sense. But that I am ruled is a notion created in me because of ignorance. That I am limited, that I am helpless, that I am subject to laws. All of this is as long as there is identification with this body-mind sense complex. But when that identification is not there, you become free from the idea of smallness or being ruled, and therefore this is a temporary idea or a notion created by ignorance. So from the standpoint of the ruled, which is a notion created from ignorance, Ishvara is branded as ruler. Because we look upon the universe as creation, therefore Ishvara is branded as creator. We find that the universe is sustained, so we call him sustainer. We find that things are being destroyed, so we call him destroyer. Giving reality to creation, sustenance, destruction. Not realizing that this is not the absolute reality. Because when you analyze what is being created, if you really investigate into what it is that is being created, you find that it leaves nothing. It ultimately resolves into uncreated, that the creation or the change is only proved to be apparent. Change, perishability, all of these are proven to be apparent. Apparent means what? Subject to being negated. That when you examine this part, you find that the perishability of the pot also is apparent, because when you really analyze it, it turns out to be clay which is not perishable. Similarly, when you analyze any name and form, it turns out to be asti, bhati, priyam, and therefore that it is created, that it is changing, that it is perishable, all of these ideas drop off. So that Brahman is called Ishvara also is a standpoint born of ignorance. And that is called ignorance which can be dispelled by knowledge. Therefore, when ignorance is dispelled by knowledge, then you find that when you look at Brahman as it is, you find that there is no rulership there. Nacha matsthani bhutani pasya me yogamaishwaram. So this is one standpoint. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina. That by my unmanifest form, the entire universe is pervaded. This is one standpoint. Matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavasthita. They are all in me. I am not in them. I am real. They are mithya. But the nachamasthani bhutani, if you look at me, there is no mithya vishya also. All there is I alone. That is a non-negatable knowledge. Earlier knowledge were standpoints negatable, but that what ultimately is one changeless reality, one changeless Brahman, one changeless limitless God, or one changeless limitless self, one changeless limitless I. That's ultimate reality. Therefore, earlier we say that Brahman is Ishvara, tentatively accepting the creation. But now we say that there is no creation. So now we have gone a step further and inquire into the nature of creation. We find that the whole creation or universe of names and forms resolves into Brahman, which is asti, bhati, priyam, and therefore all there is one. Asti bhati priyam satchidananda satyam jnanamanantam. So kalpita dvaitam apeksha ishvaratvadikam. This dvaitam, this duality is projected by ignorance, and therefore the ruled etc. are all projected by ignorance. With that standpoint, Ishvara is called, Brahman is called Ishvara. Paramathatah ananyatvam. But in reality, there is no ruled and there is no ruled ruler duality also. What is ananyatvam? Non-separatedness, just oneness, non-duality. So Bhashyakara says, na ityadina. So two virodhas are there. Kutastha advaitve brahmanah shruti pratignayoho virodhasyat. So when Brahman is kutastham and advatiya advitiyam, then Shruti and Pratigna. So Shruti says ekameva advitiyam, or Pratigna, the Shruti says that Brahma is Jagat Karanam in some places, and Sutra also says yato va imani bhutani jayante, because that sutra, Janmadyasya yatah, is based on this statement, the Upanishad, yato va imani bhutani jayante. Shruti says that Brahman is there from which the whole universe has emerged, by which it is sustained, unto which it goes back and becomes one. That's what the Shruti says. And the Sutra also says, Janmadyasya yatah. So this Tad Ananyatvam, declaring non-duality about Brahman, seems to contradict both the Shruti, the Sutra, and the Shruti upon which the Sutra is based. Virodadvayam pariharati. Both these virodas are resolved here. Both these contradictions are resolved. Na ityadina. Bhashyakara says, Na avidyatmaka nama rupa bija व्याकरण अपेक्षत्वात् सर्वज्ञत्वस्य. So what does it mean? Says Ratnaprabha. So avidyatmaka nama rupa bija. Avidyatmake nama rupe. First of all, names and forms are a product of ignorance. Chidatmali Lile. Meaning the universe, the creation is the product of ignorance. So where are these names and forms? Names and forms are all projected by ignorance, alright. But where were they before they were projected? Chidatmani Line. They were merged into consciousness. Meaning Tadhyedam Tari Avyakritamasit. What was avyakrita, undifferentiated. Tad nam rupabhyameva vyakriyata. It got differentiated as names and forms. So chidatmani line nama rupe. So avidyatmaka nama rupa. Avidyatmaka means product of ignorance. Name and form which are the nature of ignorance, or products of ignorance, which were unmanifest in the beginning. Teva bijam. These names and forms are the bijam, the very seed for the entire creation. What is the entire creation? What is created? Name and form. Satchidatmanya nyusyute. It is Satchidatma upon which all this projection is made. Hatake katakadivata, like upon gold, all silver ornaments are superimposed. Upon the water, all the waves and foam and bubbles are superimposed. So also upon Chidatma, the universe is superimposed. And so the name and form become the bijam, becomes the very cause of this universe, of the nature of name and form. So what is creation? Vyakaranam, differentiation of undifferentiated name and form is called creation. The manifestation of unmanifest name and form is called creation. So what is creation? From the unmanifest to the manifest. What is dissolution? From manifest to unmanifest. Tasya vyakaranam sthulatmana srushtihi. So avidyatmaka nama rupa bija vyakarana. The differentiation of the names and forms which are the seeds and which are the products of ignorance. Tat apekshatvat ishvaratvadehe. With reference to the creation of name and form, Brahman is called creator. He is called Ishvara. Without them, looking at Brahman itself, there is no Ishvaratvam, there is no creatorship. Therefore, na virodaha janmadyasya yataha, that's sutra. And yatova imani bhutani, that's shruti. Both of them are from the standpoint of names and forms which are products of ignorance. So, momentarily giving reality to names and forms The Shruti says that the universe of names and forms is created from Brahman, sustained by Brahman. But in reality, Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, where there is no duality at all. So, momentarily giving reality to the world, we say that Brahman is Ishvara, Brahman is creator, etc. Sangruhitartham vivranoti. So this is the Sangraha Vakya. This is the pithy statement which is what now further elaborated by Bhashyakara. Bhashyakara explains his own statement. Tasmadva ityadina. Tasmadva etasmadātmana ākāsas sambhūtah इत्यादि वाक्येभ्यः नित्य शुद्ध बुद्ध मुक्त स्वरूपात् सर्वज्ञात् सर्वशक्तेः ईश्वरात् जगज्जनि स्थिति प्रलयाः न अचेतनात् प्रधानात् अन्यस्माद्वा इति एषः अर्थः प्रतिज्ञातः जन्माद्यस्य यतः इति. So what was the purport? What was the true significance of the sutra Janmadhyasya? That from Brahman there is creation, sustenance, dissolution of the universe from Brahman. Why was it stated? There is not from Pradhana. Basically to dismiss other sources of the creation. Not to establish Brahman as a cause, Ishvara, but to dismiss the other standpoint that the Sankhya say that the Pradhanam, the primordial matter, is the cause of creation. And the Vaisheshikas would say that the 5 atoms are the cause of creation. Or the Bauddhas would say that Kshanika or Shunya is the cause of creation. To dismiss all of those standpoints, all those views, that the root of the universe is not Shunyam, it is not atom, it is not this inert matter, it is consciousness. So that was the purpose of that sutra. Not to say that Brahman is Ishvara in the primary sense. That was not the purpose. Purpose was to say that the root of the entire universe is in consciousness. Why do the Sankhyas say that Pradhanam or primordial matter is the cause of creation? Why do they say that? Because the creation appears to be inert. The Jagat or creation appears to be inert, insentient. Therefore, it makes sense that the insentient Pradhanam must be the cause of insentient Jagat. So, poor Sankhyas, that's what they think. But that is giving reality to Jagat. All these viewpoints are born of giving reality to Jagat. Or Shunyavada, giving no reality to Jagat. That's the other extreme. So Sankhyas, Vaisheshikas, Nayayikas give reality to Jagat, and Shunyavadi doesn't accept even Mithyatvam. Nothing he accepts. Therefore the Vedantin has to establish that Jagat is Mithya and Brahma is Satyam, and from the standpoint of Jagat, Brahman is called Ishvara, etc. But ultimate purpose is that Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupat. That what is the very essence of the universe? If you investigate what is the nature of this universe of names and forms, where will it resolve? The scientists are like Sankhyas. Scientists also give reality to the universe. Therefore, their conclusion, like Sankhya, is that energy or primordial matter is the cause of the creation. But no, Vedanta says no, creation is not real. It is a projection. And therefore, when it is projection, then cause doesn't have to satisfy or does not have to follow the nature of the effect. Like the rope is the cause of the snake. But because the snake is mithya, therefore rope is not required to have snakeness. You see? If snake was real, then rope must have snakeness, because snake cannot be born from something which has no snakeness. But if the snake was born really, asarva bhutayam rajvam sarparopa, superimposition of snake is upon rope, which has not a trace of snake. Similarly, the universe of names and forms is superimposed upon Brahman, which has no universeness at all. The insentient creation is superimposed upon Brahman, which has no insentience at all. Therefore, tasmadva etasad atmanah akasha sambhutah. From that Brahman, Brahmavid apnodi param, which is this Atma Satyam Jnanam Anantam. That Brahman which is the self, from that Akasha Sambhutah. From Atma, from consciousness, this space is evolved, not from anything else. Not from Pradhanam. Atmanah is the fifth case, Apadana Panchami, very clear. Tasmadva etasmad Atmanah. Very clearly stating that Atma is the material cause. So material that makes up the universe is not Pradhanam, is not atoms, is not Shunyam, is Atma. That's what the Shruti clearly says. Ityadi vakyebhyah. Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupat. What is etasmat? Tasmadva etasmat, fifth case. What is that? Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupat. Atma or Brahman, which is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta, which is Nityam, eternal, Shuddha, ever pure, Buddha, ever enlightened, of the nature of knowledge, Mukta, ever free. From that, or Nitya Shuddha, Nitya Buddha, Nitya Mukta, ever pure, ever free, ever of the nature of knowledge. Swarupat, Sarvajnat, omniscient, meaning, why does Lord Krishna, why does the Spashakar is Sarvajna? Because knowledge always is located in the conscious being. Knowledge cannot be in Pradhanam. Meaning, an inert entity cannot have knowledge. Knowledge always is centered upon conscious being. Therefore, Sarvajna. Not that omniscience is a primary nature, but then Ishvara being the Vinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam, therefore it's called Sarvajna, Sarva Shaktehe. As Nimitta Karanam, as a creator, Brahman is called omniscient, omnipotent. Ishvarat Jagat Jani Sthiti Pralayaha Janmadyasya Yataha. So the Shruti Vakya and the Sutra. Janmadyasya Yataha. Janmadi is what? Jagat Jani Sthiti Pralayaha. The creation, Jani, Sthiti, sustenance, Pralaya, dissolution, all of this is from a Brahman, which is consciousness. Na achetanat pradhanat. All of this is not from pradhanam, not from matter which is inert. anyasmadva, or from the atoms which are also inert, or from shunya which is non-existence. Iti esha artha pratignyatah. So janmadhyasya yatah, the purpose was not to give reality to creation, not to give reality to creatorship of Brahman also. The primary purpose of that sutra was to establish that Brahman is consciousness, Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhav, consciousness that is ever pure, ever enlightened, meaning ever of the nature of consciousness, ever free. So that is the reality behind the universe. The consciousness is a reality and not matter. So that's the most amazing thing. Nobody can ever imagine. Nobody can imagine that the reality behind the material world is consciousness. Can you imagine? That's the most amazing idea. Because everybody will imagine that the cause will be of the same nature as the effect. That's how Sankhyas infer that Sattva Rajas Tamas. So Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmikam Pradhanam. Pradhana, consisting of three gunas, is the cause of the creation. Nobody can ever imagine that consciousness is the truth of this inert looking Jagat, or limitless is the cause of the limited looking Jagat. And forget about Jagat, limited looking Jiva. Our main interest is in ourselves. And therefore, that even though I perceive myself to be limited being, the truth about myself is that I am limitless. So, esha artha pratignyatah. So, janmadhyasya yatah is not for establishing Ishvaratvam of Brahma, but establishing that the cause of the creation is consciousness, and not pradhanam, and not. So when Bhashyakara would discuss that sutra, understand, Bhashyakara must have the vision of the entire Brahma Sutra. And what is coming when? What we will discuss later on, and what relevance that discussion has with the present sutra. As our Swamiji says, if you want to study Gita, you must know every verse of the Gita. And to know every verse of Gita, you must know all the verses of Gita. Similarly, to a comment upon one sutra, you must know all the sutras. Everything must be right there. When Panini creates the sutras, when Badrayana creates sutras, of course. But when the Bhashyakara of Panini, like the Patanjali writes Bhashya on Panini, he must know all the sutras and all interconnections, all intricacies, because what is Panini's brain? You have to reach there. Na bhuto na bhavishyati, there is no brain like Panini's. It is the highest intellectual achievement anywhere. So in order for you to write Bhashya, you must reach there, otherwise, you will do injustice. Similarly, to write Bhashya upon the sutras, you must know where Sutrakara is coming from. So other Bhashyakaras came, but they cannot really create that impact. Once Shankaracharya came, other people did come, that they cannot create that. They can, emotionally, you can accuse and you can do various things emotionally. But intellectually, it is not possible to dismiss what Shankaracharya, the whole world accepts it, has to accept it. Anyway, so therefore here Bhashyakara says, what is the purport of the Janmadhyasya Yatah? And how the sutra does not contradict, because this sutra has a different thing to say. It has to say the non-duality of Brahman. That sutra had the purpose of saying that consciousness is the root of the creation. Therefore, they are different subject matters. Therefore, there is no contradiction. If two sutras say different things about the same subject, then there is contradiction. But they are talking about their kshetra, their field, of activity is different. Therefore, Bhashyakara says, Sa pratigna tadavastha eva natad virodhortha पुनः यह उच्यते सा प्रतिज्ञा जन्माद्यस्यतः तदवस्था एव. This sutra does not contradict that consciousness is the cause of the creation. This sutra doesn't contradict that. Therefore, that pratigna. So, pratigna, what is pratigna? Proposition of the sutra Janmadhyasayatah is not that Brahman is Ishvara. What is the proposition? That Brahman is consciousness. And this sutra in no way contradicts that. Therefore, that pratigna or that proposition remains intact. Natad viruddhortha punah iha uchyate. And this sutra does not in any way contradict what was proposed in that sutra. Says Nyaya Nirnaya Uktimivartham Chodya Pariharabhyam Sphorayate. What is stated in briefly is now again Chodya Pariharabhyam. By question and answer, Bhashyakara further clarifies this. Very important point. Katham ityadina. Katham na uchyate atyantam atmanah ekatvam advitiyatvam cha bruvata. Katham na uchyate. So Bhashyakara is na tad viruddhartha punah iha uchyate. Nothing contradictory to that sutra is stated here. How come it is said? The question is katham no. How do you say it is not said? Atmanah ekatvam advitiyatvam cha bruvata. Sutrakarana. When Sutrakara says that Atma is ekameva advitiyam, one without a second, where is the scope of Ishvara? Still he is not understood quite, looks like, and therefore he asks this question that sutra talks about, presents Brahman as Ishvara, and this one dismisses the idea of Ishvaratvam also in Brahman. So how do you say this sutra does not contradict what is stated in that sutra? Bhashyakara says, Shruno yatha na uchyate. Tad viruddha artha na uchyate. Shruno yatha. Listen to how what the sutra says does not contradict what was said in that sutra. Sarvajnasva sarvajnasya ishvarasya atmabhute iva avidya kalpite nama rupe tattva anyatvabhyam anirvachaniye samsara prapancha bija bhute सर्वज्ञस्य ईश्वरस्य माया शक्तिः प्रकृतिः इति च श्रुतिस्मृत्योः अभिलप्यते. सर्वज्ञस्य ईश्वरस्य आत्मभूते. आत्मभूत is non-separate. Atma is not the self, but Nama Rupe, at the time of dissolution. And so, Tad Vishanti, no, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani yat prayanti abhisamvishanti. It looks like there is no distinction between name and form in consciousness at the time of dissolution. Because names and forms have as though merged into consciousness, have become one with consciousness. Therefore, Atma Bhute Eva, as though Brahman is possessed of name and form, as though. Because the distinction is not evident. Really speaking, names and forms, so Brahman is distinct from names and forms. Names and forms are not different from Brahman, but Brahman is different from name and form. Understand? Masthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshavastitah. The beggar, the king are not separate from actor, but actor is definitely different from them. Therefore, what B is equal to A, but A is not equal to B. So Atma Bhute Eva. The name and form are as though the very self of Ishvara or Brahman. Avidya kalpite, really. And so, says Nyaya Nama Rupayoho Atma Bhutatve Vastutva Shankayam. If names and forms are the very self of Brahman, then name and form become as real as Brahman, isn't it? If Nityatvam, Shuddhatvam, Muktatvam is the nature of Brahman, they become as real as Brahman. Similarly, if names and forms are the self of Brahman, then they become as real as Brahman. So, Vastutva Shankaya Iva iti uktam Atma Bhute Iva, as though. Upamarthatva, it is not Iva, it can be for Upama also, or it can be Abhas also. So, Upamarthatvam Ivakarasya Varayan. Iva word is not used as though is not, as though, not like. Iva can be like, in that case it is Upama. But here it is as though, means it is Abhasa, appearance. So, avidya kalpite nama rupe, as though they are the self of Brahman, because they are imagined by ignorance. Tayoho avidya kalpitatvam sadhayati. How do you say that the names and forms are a product of ignorance? How do you say that? Because tattva anyatvaabhyam anirvachaniye nama rupe, because name and form cannot be categorized as tattva, as real, or anyatva. They can't be said as one with Brahman, nor can be said separate from Brahman. Sangapyanangap vibhayatmikano, bhinnapya bhinnap vibhayatmikano. You cannot say that the Maya is separate from Brahman or non-separate from Brahman. You cannot say that the snake is different from the rope, because there cannot be a snake. Nor can you say that the snake is one with the rope, in which case the snake will never be negated. You know. Satchet na badhyeta, asatchet na pratiyeta. If the snake was real, then even when you show the torchlight, the snake will never disappear, but it does disappear, so you cannot say that the snake is real. But you can't say it is non-existent also. Asatchet na pratiyeta. If the snake did not exist, you can't perceive that. The fact that you perceive, you cannot say that it is non-existent. And the fact that it is negated, you cannot say it is existent. And therefore, Sadasadbhyam anirvachaniyam, it is anirvachaniya, that which cannot be categorized as Sat or Asat. Similarly, Tattva or Anyatva, same thing. Tattva, that Brahmatva, you can't say that name and form are Brahman, Because then they will be real, they can never be negated. The fact that they are negated in Brahman, therefore, they are not Brahman. Anyatva, you can't say name and form are separate from Brahman, because then they will become reality. In that case, they can't be negated. And that being the case, Tattva, they are not one with Brahman, nor separate from Brahman. And this is the classic case of, this is called Mithya, which is the product of ignorance. Says Nyaya Nirnay, Nahi Ishvaratvena te niruchyete. Or Ratna also says, Nam Rupayoho Ishvaratvam Vaktum Ashakyam Jadatvad. Name and form cannot be called Brahman, because Brahman is consciousness. Name and form are Jada. In different way it is explained here. Names and forms are inert, and Brahman is consciousness. So names and forms cannot be Brahman, because inert cannot be consciousness. Napi Ishvarat Anyatvam. Nor can you say that names and forms are separate from Ishvara. Kalpitasya Pruthak Satta Sfurtiho Abhavat. So the projected snake cannot have an existence or appearance separate from rope. Similarly, the projected universe cannot have existence or cannot shine apart from Brahman. Therefore, you cannot say that it is separate from Brahman. Nahi jadam ajadan apeksham. So you can't be again both jada and ajada, because that's a contradiction. Tasmad avidyatmake nama rupe. Therefore, names and forms are a product of ignorance, like the rope snake. Then says Nyaya Nirnay, Tayoscha Karyalingakam Anumanam Pramanayati. How do you say that the names and forms are mithya? Anirvachaniya how? Because samsara prapancha bija bhute. Their names and forms are bija bhute, are the very seed or the cause of this expanded samsara prapancha, the elaborate samsara or the name, the jagat. Of that, the names and forms are the very cause. And Jagat is mithya, so names and forms must be mithya. Jagat is anirvachaniyam, therefore the cause, name and form also must be anirvachaniyam. Tayoscha ashrayatvam ashrayam vishayam cha darshayati. The names and forms are located where? Sarvajnasya Ishvarasya. They are located Ashraya and Vishaya. They have their being in Ishvara and they veil the very Ishvara. What do this name and form do? Is they are, because of Ishvara, they get their Satta Sfurti because of Ishvara. Like that snake gets its Satta Sfurti because of rope and veils the very rope. So snake's ashraya is rope and vishaya also is rope. Similarly, names and forms have ashraya, they have the locus in Brahman and they veil the very Brahman. Therefore, sarvajnasya ishvarasya maya shakti. Therefore, these names and forms are called maya shakti or prakriti. Different names are given. Say Ratnaprabha, samskaratmaka nama rupayoho avidyaikya vivaksha brute. Samskaratmaka nama rupayo, nama rupa in their potential form. Samskara means potential. So at the time of dissolution, the names and forms are there, but they are in the potential form. Just as in deep sleep, our names and forms are Swami is there in the deep sleep also, with his names and forms and all peculiarities. But all of that is only in a potential form in deep sleep, not manifest. Call it unmanifest, call it potential, call it samskara. So samskaratmaka nama rupayoho avidyaikya vivakshaya, and they are one with ignorance. That was said Maya Shakti. So sometimes the names and forms are called Maya Shakti, the projecting power of Ishvara. Prakriti, Prakriti what? So Mula Karanam, the primordial cause. Iti cha Shruti Smrutyo Abhilapyate. In the Shruti as well as Smruti. In Shruti, where do you find? Mayam tu Prakritim Vidyat Devatma Shaktim Vividhe Nigudha. So, Mayam tu Prakritim Vidyat, that Maya is the Prakriti of the primordial cause, says Shvetashvata Upanishad, Devatma Shaktim. There is a Shakti of the Devata, that is Maya, which is Nigudha, which is hidden. It is Shruti. So Shruti Smrutyo, what is Smruti? Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaramsha Gunam Chaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. All the Vikaras, all the modifications and all the Gunas are the product of Prakriti. So there the word Prakriti is used. Or Maya Hyesha iti eva parat. So there also in Smruti the Maya, I think Lord Krishna says to Narada that this is my Maya. And so word Maya also is used in Smruti. So in Shruti and Smruti, in both the places, the words Maya and Prakriti are used. For what? The names and forms in their potential state are called Maya or Prakriti, Avyakta, Avyakruta. All the different names are for the names and forms in their potential state. Nam rupe chet Ishvaratma bhute tarhi sopi, says Ratnaprabha. Nam rupe chet Ishvarasya Atma bhute tarhi Ishvaro jada ityaha. So Bhashyakara said Ishvarasya Nama, so Atma bhute, they are as though the nature of Ishvara. If names and forms are the nature of Ishvara, the names and forms are inert, then Ishvara also is inert. So, Matsthani Sarabhutani Nachaham te, that equation. B is equal to A, but A is not equal to B. The beggar is not separate from actor, but actor is different from the beggar. That equation is now brought about here. Tabhyam iti. So Bhashyakara says, Tabhyam Anyah Sarvajnah Ishvarah Akasho Vai Namarupayoho Nirvahita Tedantara Tad Brahma Iti Shrutehe. So when you say Ishvarasya Atma Bhute, meaning names and forms are not separate from Ishvara, but Tabhyam Anya Ishvara, but Brahman is definitely separate from them. Sarvajna Ishvara. So Brahman, which is consciousness, is definitely separate from names and forms. So Bhashyakara very often use the word Ishvara for Brahman also. Sometimes confusion occurs. Somebody did the research in Brahma Sutra and discovered that Bhashyakara uses different words for Brahman. Ishvara is the word that he uses for Brahman, but not in a primary sense. That Ishvara means not ruler. Ishvara. That's why he seems to like that word, And so Bhagavan. So Akasho vai nama rupayoho nirvahita. What is Ishvarasya nama rupabhyam arthantaratve pramanamaha. This is a statement in the Chhandogya which clearly says how Brahman is different from name and form. Akasha here is the sense of Brahma. Akasho vai nama rupayoho nirvahita. Brahman is one that accomplishes the names and forms. Te yad antara tad Brahman. that in which they are sustained, that is Brahman. So names and forms are sustained in Brahman. Names and forms are projected by Brahman, they are sustained in Brahman, and therefore their Brahman is different from them. Yad antara tad Brahman. So that in which they are sustained, that is Brahman. So Brahman is a sustainer and they are sustained, so Brahman is different from them. It is Shrutehe. Further it is said, Nama Rupe Vyakarvani Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha Namani Kritva Abhivadanyadaste Ekam Bijam Bahudha Yah Karote Ityade Shrutibhyascha. And there are other Shrutis also. Nama Rupe Vyakarvani. Let me manifest names and forms. So what does Brahman say? Let me manifest names and forms. Understand that when can Brahman manifest names and forms? When it is there. When names and forms are not manifest and Brahman is there, then like the pot maker saying, let me manifest this pot from the clay. When can pot maker say? When it is there present before the pots are made. Here clay itself says, let me manifest names and pots and pans. So when Brahman says, let me manifest, that means that it is there before their manifestation. So they were not there and by Anvaya Vyatirika, they were not there and Brahman was, the Brahman is separate from them. Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha Dhiraha, the omniscient, Vichitya, having created Sarvani Rupani, the omniscient Lord created all the forms, Namani Krutva, having entered them, he assumed all the names, Abhivadanyadaste, and now he remains proclaiming those names. I am Devadatta, I am Vishnumitra, he says. So first the name and form of Devadatta is created, Vishnumitra is created, he enters them and now he claims, I am Devadatta. The one who says I am Devadatta, who is he? That Param Brahma. I am Vishnumitra, I am a pot, I am a table, I am a chair, I am sun, I am moon. He proclaims all these names. Who proclaims? Ishvara or Brahman. Meaning that he is the one who proclaims. Having created names and forms, he got identified with them, but names and forms are created. He was there even when names and forms were not. Therefore, he is separate from names and forms. Ekam bijam bahuda yah karoti. One cause who makes multifarious. One clay is made into many pots and pans. Similarly, one names and forms are created into the whole diverse universe. Ityadi Shrutibhya. But he creates diversity, therefore he is independent of diversity. Ityadi Shrutibhya. From all the Shrutis, that is very clear that Ishvara is separate from names and forms. That's what Nyayendra said. Yattu nama rupa bija vyakarana apeksham aishvaryamiti. That Ishvara is called ruler based on the manifestation of names and forms. Tatra vyakarane pramanamaha. How Ishvara manifested the names and forms? Nama rupe vyakarvani. That's a statement which says that Ishvara manifested names and forms. Jivasya vyakartatvam vyaseddhum vakyantaram udaharati. Maybe Jiva has brought about the names and forms. The Mimamsakas may say, no, Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhira, the omniscient one. Anisho va kuryat bhuvana jananekah parikaraha. How can Jiva, who is limited in every way, wherewithal he has to create this universe? Nam rupa vyakaranasya nana vidatva siddhyatam shrutyantaram pathati. how names and forms have become various and multifarious. So ekam vijam bahudaya karoti. Like the pot maker makes one clay into many pots and pans, so also the Ishvara takes that name and form and makes it multifarious as the universe. Adi Shabdebhya Satchatyacha Bhavata Ityadya Shruti Gruhyate. Niruktam cha nilayanam cha satyachanrutam cha satyam abhavata. That is different. Satyatyacha bhavat. Now that is sat and tyat. So satyam cha nrutam cha satyam abhavat. That's what it says. Oh, satyacha Satyatyacha bhavata niruktam cha nilayanam cha vijnanam cha satyam cha nrutam cha. Okay. Why doesn't he quote that? Satyam cha nrutam cha. Anyway, so satya asat. So sat and asat means the gross and the cause and effect. That's how it is. So effect and cause. Iti. दर्शित श्रुतिभ्य नामरूप व्याकरणम ईश्वरायत्तम सिद्धम तदपेक्षम च ऐश्वर्यमित्यर्थस्य. So from all the Shrutis, it's very clear that names and forms are all manifested by Ishvara. So he is separate from them, and that he gets a designation of a ruler, etc. based on names and forms. When names and forms are not there, there is no ruler also. Ishvara is called ruler when? When names and forms come into manifestation. Before that there is no rulership. So Ishvarayattam and Nam Rupayattam. The names and forms are because of Ishvara, of Brahman, and Brahman is called Ishvara because of names and forms. Iti. So Bhashyakara says, Swabhavikatvad Aishwaryasya kuto vyakaran apeksha. Why not you say that rulership is natural, is its nature? Why do you say it is relative based on names and forms? So says evam avidyakrita nam rupopadhi anurodhi Ishvaro bhavati Vyoma iva ghatakarkade upadhe anurodhe. So Ishvara, his nature is to conform to what is created. Like the fire conforms to the pieces of wood and appears of the form of the wood. Like the embers. Similarly, Ishvara creates a name and form and conforms to that. That is the reason why he is called Ishvara. He remains his independent self and appears to, like fire, remains formless, but appears to have assumed a form. Similarly, Ishvara remains Brahman, but appears to have become as though Ishvara by conforming to the name and form which are the products of ignorance. Avidyakrita Nama Rupa Upadhi. So Nama Rupa becomes the Upadhi. Ishvara conforms to the Upadhi, which is name and form created from ignorance. Ishvaro Bhavati. He is called Ishvara only in that, from that standpoint. Vyomaiva Ghatakarkadi Upadhi Anurodhi. Just as the space also conforms to the forms of pots and pans, etc. is called Ghatakasha, Patakasha, Mathakasha. In conformity to the various forms, so also Ishvara is called, the Brahman is called Ishvara, Sarvagnya, Sarvashaktiman or Sarvashaktimat, based on the names and forms. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnama दाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।